You are listening to the new man beyond the Macho Jerk and the New Age Wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Can a neutered nerd become that's hard to say. Can a neutered nerd become a stud? Is your inner critic an enemy or an ally? And is self-rejection fueling your ambition to be better? Today, Alyson and I react to a movie called The Hitman and the topic of reinventing ourselves. This leads us to discuss pickup artists, neutered men, and facing that awful inner critic.
Right now?
It's not 180
It's
degrees.
not? What needs to change?
Well, that needs to be, you see the
Like
angle.
directly?
Yes, you need to have it 180 degrees.
What is it? Is that like I put it lined up?
That
with
would be
yours?
perfectly lined up because you want phase cancellation.
There you go. There you
How
go.
about that?
Did you just say, how about that?
And then pull it a little closer to you.
Like that?
Yeah.
Then I can't drink my drink. How do you drink your drink?
I go like this.
Oh, okay. You told me not ever to turn away from the mic.
When you're not talking, you can totally turn away. It's just when you're talking. Did you get are you ready to go? Did you
I
think?
think so. I just peed and everything.
Thank you.
I only need another 15
only
minutes
need
before I have
15?
to pee again. All my fluids in the
I'm
morning.
going to actually note that. Yeah.
I give it 20.
How are you feeling towards me? You feeling
I
open
feel
or
good
angry?
towards you. I don't feel angry. How do you, wait, the question is, how do you feel towards me? There's the grunt, sort of like,
You know, there's a certain cycle that we
That
go
you
through.
go through?
That right. It's just me. Where I'm really
I
funny.
was telling you about your cycle the other day.
Yes,
Do
my
you remember
cycle.
the cycle?
Please remind me of my cycle that I go through, where I'm really funny and then I'm really
So
annoying.
your tagline growing up was twerp,
Twerp.
and
I'm
so
pretty sure I was little shit.
your cycle, yeah, either interchangeable, and so your cycle growing up was, or your cycle now is that you're like kind of you have a low level constant twerpiness going on, and as you go through your cycle, your twerpiness ramps up to like full on shit.
Just a dick.
And then it hits a crescendo where our daughter and I are like, "Rah!"
And then
that's enough.
That's enough.
Knock it off.
Okay.
And then you kind of settle down, and
And this exists in a vacuum. It's not influenced
it has
by
nothing to do with our
living
hormonal
with,
cycles.
with two women on the same hormonal cycle
has nothing
in
to
the
do
same
with that.
house.
Nothing to do with that.
Because it could be I'm just the same funny all the time. And then maybe at certain times, you guys just think I'm an asshole.
And you're not funny at
And
all.
then there's a day like Sunday, or B was like laughing at me again. And I was like, I'm the same guy. And she
Right.
was just laughing. And I was like 2 days before, she was just glaring at me.
We should probably track your content of what you say.
I'm sure
I'm
that's
sure
it.
that has. I'm sure that's what it is.
I'm going to take
It has
100%.
nothing to do with us.
I'm going to take 100% responsibility here. I'm living with two wild cats. They're just ready to snuggle or bite at any moment. All right, so let's jump in.
Okay.
So we saw a movie. Speaking of family time,
We did. We watched. I don't know the actor's name that was starred in
well,
that movie.
the name of the movie was The Hitman, and the
A
premise
recent movie.
the
'cause there's
premise
so
of the
many hidden.
movie is he's kind of a
He's a
nerdy,
dopey school teacher.
I wouldn't say he's dopey. He was very smart. He was taught philosophy and
I think of dopey in a different way.
psychology, but he was, kind of nerdy and insular. He was isolated. He owned two cats. That was a big kind of like, whoa,
Id and
indicator.
ego.
Id and ego. But no, he'd also had his wife had left him, and there was a conversation in there where she basically was like, "You're not passionate. You're not."
And then through the circumstances of the movie, he takes on this other persona, and then he's got a lot of swagger and he's got a lot of whatever. And that's kind of the gist of the movie. So after the movie, I asked you, I was like, what'd you think about that? Like his kind of transformation. And you surprised me with your answer. Do you remember what you said? Mm-mm. Are you fucking...
You said you were going to remind me.
That was the whole point of this conversation, is that you don't... So what did you think of it? Just come back to...
I liked it.
You liked it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said there were two things that I mean, do you want me to say everything that I said to you?
You don't even remember what you said
No,
to me.
I mean, I said I liked it. You said you were like, really?
Yeah, I was blown away, but go ahead. What did you like about it? We'll just start fresh.
Well, there's a couple
but let me just say that this relates to, like, can you reinvent yourself? That's the whole point. It's not about the movie. I don't give a shit about the movie, but I do want to talk about this idea of reinventing ourselves. And so you looked at it through one lens, and I think I was looking at it through another. And so, there's a lot of us that are in a place of, gosh, if only I was this, or if only I was that, and my life would be XYZ. Mm-hmm. And then there's also, I mean, years ago, there was that whole pickup artist thing where guys were putting on these personas in order to get the attention of women. And then it was like, they didn't know what to do if they actually got the girl. It was like, geez, I don't know how to actually be myself. So we've seen this world where people put on an act and play a role in order to get something.
Yeah.
And
and in that movie, I mean, anybody who studied the pickup artist stuff would look at that movie and be like, yeah, right. Like they would look through that lens.
It helps to look like that
and
guy.
And it would validate their whole shtick on pickup artistry. But I was saying that I liked it because, this person was essentially, they portrayed his character as one-dimensional initially. And very simple. He was like, I'm happy with my life. I tinker with this and I teach that and I like my cats. And like, it was very simple and quiet. There was no like, but I really long for some sort of wholeness in some other way. So that wasn't there in the beginning. So this is all us, just to be clear, this is all like me projecting on it. But
sure.
But the thing that I liked was, there's a few things that I liked. One was that he was from the old days. I don't know if this is still, I guess this is still taught in polarity teachings in the world, but he was not on anybody's radar when he was in that one-dimensional character. And then when he started to try on different characters, he didn't just get swagger all the time, but which he did. But I mean, he tried on all these different characters to do his job. And I liked that because then it was giving him access to more of himself. And, you and I have talked privately that in the last, 7 to 10 years, there's been a real shaming or, we call it cancel culture, call it whatever you want, but there's like a real smack on the nose for men for lots of things, not just, depending on what level of feminist you are, it goes from a smack on the nose and being that's rude and uncool to like burn them at the stake. So generally speaking, in private, you and I have talked about how so many men in the world now, they're their kind of tail is tucked and they're like neutered basically.
Right.
And so that was how I was perceiving this character when in his initial sort of one-dimensional state. And the reason why I liked it is because you and I still get people in our coaching practices where the man will come to you or me and say his wife, or the woman will come to me or either, and say that there's tension between them because the woman wants to be like claimed, devoured. They really want to feel the man's desire or passion or like agency and his spirit, essentially. Like they want to feel his masculine spirit. I'm stuttering a little bit because I always have a hard time with like masculine, feminine principles, but it's there.
Yeah.
So we'll just say that like they're longing for that polarity. And so the reason that I liked that movie, I thought that it paid homage to what happens when a man brings his whole self, including his agency, including his hunter, killer, sort of like, I'm gonna, be how I am, even if that's disruptive of calm, collected, stay in your seat and shut up.
You might feel unsettled.
Yeah, it might be unsettling,
Right.
and that in the movie, suddenly he was on everybody's radar, like as a sex, like this is a sexy person, or this is, there was a scene where students were like, when did this teacher get hot? And, like that kind of thing. And so.
All right. So that's interesting. So you were seeing it as the process challenged him to get in touch with what was true for him, his innate kind of drive.
As an opportunity for him to, and
Right.
he took it.
Okay. Because I saw it through the lens of him playing a role, which is more common. The guy's posturing. I'm going to act like this person. I'm going to take on these qualities. These aren't actually how my qualities, but I'm going to adopt this posture. I've had conversations with people. It's like they even change the drink they like to have because they want to be perceived as more masculine. So there's this posturing of I am masculine, I am strong, I am all of these things, but it's superficial.
Yeah.
But you were saying that you saw his passion. You saw it being more genuine of who he was and not an act. And I think there's something to this, right? And I think there's an aspect of this. So if I'm asking the question of like, can I change? Yes. If you get in touch with what's been eclipsed, like there's something
what's really there.
There's something that's there, and then drawing that out and allowing it, that is transformational. It's different. I think a lot of us think of transformation maybe as like, I have to adopt these things and like bolt them on to this of who I am, or take on these make a performance and do this every day when I go in. And that's extremely difficult because there's the imposter, right? It's like, you're going to find out.
It's really interesting. Like I think this is really fascinating conversation to me because so I feel like we could parse this out in terms of what you're talking about in the category of relationships and relating with other people.
Well,
hear me out, because there is so much cognitive behavioral psychology, including all the whole thing, optimize your life and achievement life, psychology, all of that shit is around like Atomic Habits, like that book. It's all about like, you're not this, you're not identify as this person. You don't think you're this person. So the trick to change is to think of yourself as this person. Mm-hmm. So cognitively, you're going to imagine who would I be? If I was a healthy person, if I wanted to lose weight and I was somebody that had a healthy lifestyle, how would that healthy person think and eat and feel? What choices would they make?
Right.
So there is sort of a fake it till you make it in the cognitive behavioral world for when it comes to changing your habits but in that psychology, ultimately it's like, the cell is change who you are, change how you identify with yourself. And so, but relationally, I think you're speaking in terms of like that fake it till you make it doesn't tend to work that well with other people because they sniff it out immediately.
Right. There's an insecurity that you're going to find out that I'm not really this tough guy who has it all together and he's impressive all the time, and you're going to hear me fart or something. There's just that like it's the persona is going to come crashing down at some point.
Right.
But I like what you're saying because I think that is the root of what we can change. So let's just come back. Like the way that I see it is there's this element of wholeness, like, or essence. This is who I am on an essential level. Yeah. That was there when we came out of our mamas.
Yeah.
There's something there that's coming through us and as us. And a lot of times that starts to get eclipsed very early on in life. You need to behave a certain way. You need to be
call
this.
That programming.
Right. You have all these programs. And it's necessary. Like we have to learn how to be in a civil world and kind of get along. But oftentimes that can crush that essence or at least put it down.
For sure.
And then we adopt all of these new behaviors. And those can be changed. Those can be, but we would have to, I think it's important to come back to what do I value? So if I value my body or I value my finances or I value XYZ, then I would change my behaviors. Early on, though, if I start to adopt a script and say, well, this is just who I am, this is who I am, and I'm kind of stuck there, you're right. Like that's really tough to change, but it can change.
It can change.
We can transform that with just new behaviors and new data. Like when I'm working with people and they go through a breakthrough and they get on the other side, immediately it's like they're kind of like moved on to the next thing. I was like, let's slow down. Because we got to integrate this.
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
the new story.
Yeah.
This is who you are now. It wasn't a one-time thing, because that old identity will just stay stuck there.
Yeah.
And it's like we have to update that script. Like, actually, you're a person that does X, Y, and Z now.
Yeah.
And that can have us just adopt, like, oh right, and then we just settle into this is who I am.
Yeah.
And that, I would call that integrity, when our actions align with what we truly value, and we're not afraid. Well, we might be afraid of how we're perceived by others, but we have the courage to lean into that.
Yeah, and the whole, like, with reinventing, people. I think the reason people think that you can't change is it takes some real mindfulness. It takes some real willingness to examine the water you're swimming in. And so the water you're swimming in isn't just your programming, although it definitely is a huge piece of that. But it's not only that, but the ways in which the larger water you're swimming in also confirms that. I was listening to a book yesterday by Steve Chandler, and he was talking about how they used to value hard work as an ethic. Like that's a value.
That was a value.
And now the value is, how fast can I get it? How easy can it be? How little do I have to do for it, for whatever it is? Like, and he was using an example of, like, somebody telling another person, like, I lost 20 pounds and I didn't have to do anything. And like the value is, I don't have to do anything. Like, I can get that.
I found a hack. I found a cheat code.
I can get the thing from Amazon in less than 48 hours. I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was push a button, and that's the new value. And he was, and I really appreciated that. And as with the conversation we're having right now, because I think it aligns. Like, there's this, so there's your inner sort of programming, interjects from your family, whatever. Like if your parents tell you you're lazy or you're a slob or whatever, that then you take that in,
Start to believe it.
and you believe, yeah, it's totally the word of God. So it's like, I'm okay, I guess I'm a slob, and so it goes really, you have to be really, if you want to, like, the change, there is some psychology, like actual psychology involved, of like really being willing to be like, is it true? I might have just believed this and then went along with it. Just like I might believe that I'm a healthy person and went along with those behaviors. I believe that I'm a slob and I'm going on with those behaviors. So it does go deep in that way. Your personal life, your upbringing, your programming, your societal programming, social programming, but then the larger programming, a lot larger water you're swimming in. So the answer, in my opinion, is yes, you absolutely can change.
Yeah. So it's a both and, right? So can I shift who I am on an essential level? That takes some real awareness to, like, really understand what that is. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
Might be the next book I'm working on.
Might be the next.
But the
Sound effects.
But then the other aspects, like, what are these behaviors that shape the story? What's the story that I live into?
Yeah.
I can take ownership of that.
Yeah.
And start to shift those things, but it will take work. There's no cheat codes or hacks or whatever. I've got to be very aware of it, and I can work towards that. And I think it's helpful to do that from a place of acceptance and forgiveness, instead of, I'm a piece of shit, I have to change who I am, because that really does drive a lot of growth. So much growth for people is because they can't stand who they are.
But it's not sustainable like that.
It's not sustainable. But that repulsion,
yeah,
and
for
that
sure. The battle, the
condemnation,
war, it's like through time, religious history.
It's just awful to hear how brutal we are to ourselves, myself included, like that. That just, the lack of acceptance there is so hard. And ideally, we come to a place of, like, can I accept that these are aspects of who I am now? Can I appreciate them? They served me. And we're going to we're going to make them, go in this direction for the better. So.
Yeah, I think for majority of the work that I do with people when they're really suffering, they come to me and they're really suffering, that's what I'm doing with them. That's the first thing that has to happen, is that obviously self-awareness if they have that, but beyond the self-awareness, self-acceptance. Like we have to get to a place where every part of themselves is allowed in the room first, just allowed to be there with like compassion or at minimum neutrality.
Yeah.
And so because there's one last piece on this conversation that feels important, which you actually helped me with just the other day.
You were in that dark
I was
dark
in
place.
a dark place. Yeah. I was really like eclipsed by a part of me that I haven't really felt in a long time, like an inner critic that I really haven't experienced that part of me in a long time. And once I was able to be with it, you said something and I was like, what? I did not understand what you said. You were like, can you be curious? And it's one thing like in IFS, you're like, you're going to interview this part in some way, like, and just be curious and get to know them. But that's not where you were coming from. You were like, be curious about what it's bringing to you, like the message, the content that it's giving you. It just don't fit. Anybody that knows IFS this is not IFS, like what he was talking about. I remember being like, I cannot freaking compute what you're saying right now. And you were like, you were talking about taking ownership, and you were essentially saying, can you thank that part? Can you be curious about the content that it's bringing as information? So it's like you're checking yourself. Maybe this is moot without me describing the actual scenario, which is like I was kind of going up against academia and Department of Regulatory agencies in my mind around this thing that I want to bring to the field of psychology. And so the critic was like, essentially like, who are you to do that? Like you gave up your licensure on purpose. You have no fucking foot to stand on to do this. You never went for that doctorate that your dad always wanted you to go for. Like there was all this, like,
you're not good
now
enough.
Now you can't play this game anymore because you took yourself out of the game. And you were like, get curious, notice the content, and can you take that content in as good information, as an informant? And it shifted, instead of like just taking it in as like believing it as I'm nobody or I don't have a foot to stand on, take it in as an owner of what it's saying and reckon with it, meet the challenge as like, okay, great. So thank you for being the scout in this way. So then what do I need to learn? Who do I need to partner with? What do I need to create on my end so I actually do have a place to stand in this work? Because I do have something to say, and I think it would benefit the field of psychology. So it's like, without that conversation though, I would stay in that. I could do some therapy and that would be great. But I could, and it would help settle things down. But it wouldn't have been enough to tip me into like actually
owning it.
Yeah, and so
there's a collapse. This part comes along, beats the shit out of us. Who the fuck are you? And then we collapse. We don't move into it.
Yeah.
There's another thing where we can be like, fuck you, I'm going to show you, and that kind of posture thing. And then the battle is gas brake.
Yeah,
like we're moving, and then that other part gets the wheel, and then, then it's hitting the brakes.
It's a war. It's just a war.
Yeah. War of art, right? So then here though, we get curious. What is it trying to say? It's really unskillful. It's a real prick about it.
Yeah.
But there might be something useful there.
Yeah.
And if we're willing to listen and address it, that part usually calms down.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay, cool. That's some good information. You're an asshole about how you bring it, but you're still trying to protect.
Yeah. And the asshole of how you bring it, even, that's, to me, like, this is where IFS kind of blends. Like, that's just another part that has an opinion about it and wants it to be more gentle. But from this other place of taking ownership, I felt thankful for that part, like
Yes.
genuinely thankful, like, holy fuck, you're a total ally to me.
Yes.
Instead of, wow, you're just beating me down and I should crawl back into my hole, like I'll crawl back under my rock or whatever
Right.
it is.
And that's the shift probably from being a little girl to an adult
Yeah.
and being able to like, like the little girl, it's not her job to deal with that. And she's just going to get beat up.
Well, and there's the thing that I agree with everything you're saying. It's like, yes to that. And I just want to highlight, like, this is also your book. Like because this is different. Like this is directly connected with staying connected and aligned with essence. Like what's wanting to move through you.
Absolutely. And then that informs my values, right? What is it that I want for my life? What do I want to create? And then that informs integrity, right? So my actions will align with that. I'm being challenged here. Do I collapse? A wall has integrity if it can withstand challenge, right? The wind comes and it doesn't just fall right over. So a wall can withstand that. But I can also be curious. This is information. This is everything is information. Everything is information. So I might take a licking and I might be on the mat with a bloody nose, but I can get back up and be like, what was that about? What could I learn from that? Instead of like, okay, better not do that again. Better not go down that road. I could be like, there was something useful there.
For sure.
And that will usually calm that part down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's usually what psychedelics do for me. I just get the shit beat out of me.
You do get the shit beat out of you.
And then, but if I take ownership, a lot of times there's a temptation to be like, no, that's just the psychedelics doing the thing to me. But if I'm willing to get curious, and sometimes it's really hard to like just take 100% ownership of all the crazy shit that shows up and just be like, all right, what is it? What's the information here? And it's usually not very fun, but there's usually something really valuable there too. It's like, if I were to really think about this and what I could take ownership of here, what if that was just a fucking mean ass ally and they got a message for me?
Yeah. I mean, essentially, without even probably knowing it, you're cultivating sovereignty there. I mean, it's a real interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole different wormhole I could go down with that conversation. what you're saying
I
is
might
happening.
need to wear a headdress.
I'm not gonna.
I'm gonna wear a headdress.
I'm
for
not
that.
gonna go there right now.
All right. Well, we can wrap this up. That feels good.
By the
I feel
way,
like we touched it.
5 minutes ago, how much time I've gone by before? Because I had to pee like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, really?
What is it? Is it 15 minutes, 20?
You went
30?
longer. Yeah, it was almost 30.
30. All right.
Yeah. All right. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah.
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.